Hello guys, share ko lang ang topic ko today. It's about everyday life as narrative. I'm going to present my PowerPoint presentation about it. So, first, everyday life as narrative. We noted above that every text belongs within a genre. So, as we go along, we will learn what genre is. Well, meaning guys, everything in our life is a story. Kanang, for example, when we wake up in the morning, life happens. We get to decide what we want to do, whether we walk into nature or something else. Life indeed is a story. So, indeed, for many of us, no plot is ever evident. As I said, everything there in life is unpredictable. Hindi natin malalaman kung ano ang mangyayari mamaya or bukas. Everything there is a causal connection. Causal connections between events may be very fuzzy, and there will be rarely be the clarity and organization we expect of narrative. Arthur Asa Berger, 1997, just even further insisting that life is nothing like narrative because it is all middle, generally diffuse and basically eventless. But as Michel D. Certeau points out, life is like narrative because the principle of narrative shapes our world. According to the authors, nagkakaiba ang point of view nila sa narrative. So, here's the definition. Narrative. A narrative is a telling of something true or fictitious event connected sequence of events recounted by a narrator to narrate, although there may be more than one of each. So, as I said, everything there in life is composed of narrative. Um, every little action, ano man ang ating ginawa, may narrative yan. Kaya we always say na magawa ka ng buhay ng kaibigan mong naka, naka, nakalagpas sa UAP. So, story. An account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment. We have defined a story as a narrative of events arranged in their time sequence. So guys, the simple definition of story is tayo when we share our experiences with our friends, that is already a story. Important terms to remember. Narrator, storyteller, narrator, one who tells a story in a work of fiction that the narrator determines the story point of view. If the narrator is a full participant in the story's action, the narrative is said to be in the first person. Example, a religious broadcast with Johnny Morris as narrator. Genre, a category of artistic, musical, or literary composition characterized by a particular style, form, or content of classic of the Gothic novel genre. There's the other definition, kind, sort. The other one, painting that depicts scenes or event from everyday life, usually realistically. Plot. The plot is the story and more especially how the story develops, unfolds, and moves in time. Example, the king died and then the queen died is a story. The king died and then the queen died of grief is a plot. Rising action. Rising actions refers to the part of the story after the characters and settings are introduced and where event of the story begins to create suspense as the character faces conflict. The rising action of the story includes the event that help to build towards the climax of the story. Climax. The highest or most intense points in the development or resolution of something. Culmination. His career reached its climax when he was elected president. In a dramatic or literary work, a decisive moment that is of that is of maximum intensity or is a major turning point in a plot. A little girl has been looking for her lost dog. Kevin has worked very hard to try out for the soccer team at school. Mary's parents have been discussing whether or not to move to another state. Louis has performed in the state gymnastic finals. The school's football team is down by 3 points in the fourth quarter. Falling action. Falling action is what happens near the end of the story after the climax and resolution of the major conflict. The majority of literary and dramatic works, stories, novels, plays, movies are built on action. Characters doing things, typically pursuing things they want. Falling action. Example. Examples of falling action. Two friends fight over a boy. Climax. But then after their tempers cool, they decide to talk through the problems instead of fighting. Resolution of denouement. The resolution, also known as the denouement, is the conclusion of the story's plot. Following action, the story begins to slow down and work towards its ends, tying up loose ends of the plot. Resolution, also known as the denouement, the resolution is when conflicts are resolved and the story concludes. Resolution, denouement. Example. The explicit use of denouement is when an action gives resolution to an essential aspect of a story. A great example of explicit denouement is the ending of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Denouement example. The final outcome of the main dramatic complication in a literary work in the denouement, the two lovers commit suicide. The outcome of a complex sequence of events. The resolution is the end of the story. It occurs after the climax. It is when you learn what happens to the character after the conflict is resolved. An account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment. Causality, also referred to a causation or cause and effect, is influenced by which one event, process, state, or object a cause contributes to the production of another event or object. An effect where the cause is partly responsible for the effect and the effect is partly dependent on the cause. Reading images. Reading images. It is certain way to tell the meaning that is being depicted in a picture or painting through mental analysis. An image may indeed tell, but tells without the clarity provided by words and without the principles of narrative organization that are readily possible in verbal language. If a picture paints 1,000 words, it is also true to say that it may be read in 1,000 ways, and tells my read stories because pictures are always open to personal interpretation and relatively inaccessible to any who lack who lack a very specific literacies. Terms to remember. Reading is the process of taking in the sense or meaning of letters, symbols, etc., especially by sight or touch. An image is a picture that has been created or copied. Image. An optical or other representation of a real object. A graphic, a picture. Image, mental picture of something not real or not present. News photographs are interpreted by their caption as much as their content. Art museum put enormous effort into producing whole text to locate and explain the paintings and sculptures on display. And comic strips and graphic novels rely on the textual information as much as on the genres of drawing and reading. Given the tendency to add words, Bardes writes, it is not very accurate to talk of a civilization of the image. We are still, and more than ever, a civilization of writing, 1987, 38. The function of words in the reference to visual text he writes are firstly to anchor the meaning and then to relay it to to direct readers and which meaning are privileged and which are to be ignored. So guys, that's all. Mag-unsa lang ko sa quiz unya. Akong i-post quiz.